Moving countries can be one of the most exciting and most challenging things you'll ever do. And we're here to take one big worry off your plate: your taxes. At Expat Taxes, we understand the complexities of Irish tax from your perspective as an expat and tailor our advice to your needs. With decades of expertise, our team at Expat Taxes will help you navigate tax residency, cross-border taxation, reliefs and returns, and will work with your country's tax advisor to make sure your taxes are sorted. Whether you're an individual or a corporation coming from Australia, the United States, the UK, or anywhere in the world, we want to help you. So visit us at expattaxes.ie to book a consultation today, and let's make moving to Ireland easier together.
Welcome to Tax Bytes for Expats, the top tax tips you want to know as an expat. The podcast is here to help answer the common queries and concerns expats have when moving to or from Ireland. Complex taxes explained simply. We'll focus on the Irish and international tax issues to be aware of to ensure you save time, money, and stress.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Tax Bytes for Expats. We had a little bit of a hiatus over the summer, but we're back with a bang. And today we're going to talk with Mel Morgan of ukstatepensionabroad.com. Mel is one part of a husband and wife team which have extensive business, banking and compliance experience behind them. His wife Martha is a qualified financial advisor with the Institute of Bankers since 2007. She has many years financial service experience across both private and retail banking. Mel is a commercial and marketing professional with a passion for excellent customer experience, developed in luxury goods and the sport businesses. He holds a BCom and MBS in marketing and financial management from the University of College Galway and UCD. The Morgans have a simple goal, which is to help as many people as possible avail of what is rightfully theirs to build for retirement. And to date, they have assisted hundreds of people from around the world in achieving a favourable beneficial result from the Department of Work and Pensions and UK Revenue via their website ukstatepensionabroad.com. But I'm not going to spend any more time telling you about him. I'm going to let him speak for himself and welcome him to this episode. Mel, thank you so much for joining us. I hope my intro did you justice. You and Martha have a very interesting background. I'd like you to tell our listeners a little bit about how you got into this line of work.
Yes, both Martha and I worked in the UK in the late 90s for 5.5 years. And we moved back in early 2000 and continued to work here in Ireland in different areas of expertise. But it was really at the start of lockdown in 2020, I came across my old national insurance card from the UK. And there was a number in the back, so I dialed it. And I said, look, I wonder if I have any benefits. And the girl at the other end eventually answered. She said, how many years were you there? I said, 5.5. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. You need 10 to get any benefit. So I almost hung the phone up and she whispered in my ear, she said, but you can buy back 18 years. I said, tell me more. And that's what started it. I discovered that I could buy back 18 years of UK state pension benefit for less than £3,000. And so could my wife. So we both invested in that. And we continued to pay Class 2, which is the less expensive version of this, until we hit our retirement age. So in total, by the time we hit our retirement, we will have paid probably £7,000 in total. But that will mean that each of us will get approximately £10,000 to £11,000 a year. So that's somewhere between £20,000 and £22,000 a year in UK state pension on our retirement between us. And that's in addition to our Irish state pension benefit, even for the same years, because they're treated as AVCs.
So, firstly, that's fantastic. And I can only imagine how happy you were to take that call. I think for people maybe who are listening to this and aren't familiar with the way that the social insurance systems work generally, what you've alluded to there is really interesting, that, you know, both the UK and Ireland pay state pensions with reference to essentially what you've put into the system.
Mm-hmm.
And your business ultimately is allowing people to put more into the system on a voluntary basis than they otherwise may have because of their work record. So I suppose today, people listening who have ever worked in the UK are people who may be interested in this topic. Is that fair to say that you have to have worked in the UK for to be in the cohort? Is that a criteria that must have been met?
Yes, it is. It is. Their official line is that you need to have 3 years consecutive working time in the United Kingdom, be that anywhere in the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Is there a time limit for that since a certain date or just at all?
No, there's no time limit. There are time limits in terms of the age of the people. And we predominantly deal with people who are pre-retirement age, which is age 65 and under. The route is a little bit different from people who are 66 plus. It's quite a bit different. Broadly speaking, if men born before 1951 April and women born before 1953 April, they have no entitlement to the benefit because they are captured in the old UK state pension. But generally, to answer your question, there is no real time limit. You could have worked there in the 70s or 80s, 90s, or 2000s or 2010s.
It's amazing, isn't it? So tell us a little bit about the people that you are working with or the process. What does the process look like if somebody's listening to this and they're just not sure if maybe they even fall into the category? What does it look like to kind of go through with this?
Technically, there are two elements of the UK government you need to deal with. It is a requirement. It's not a hard requirement, but it is a requirement of UK revenue that you get a state pension forecast from the Department of Work and Pensions. So that's one element. And the other is the full application to UK revenue, to HMRC. And the full application, it's very simple, but strangely complex. For instance, the main central form is only a 2-page form, but the leaflet that goes with it online, it runs to 37 pages. So I see a lot of people, you can do this yourself, of course. I see a lot of people do this, but they don't know that they need to send an appendix with it. They don't understand that the way you answer certain questions will determine whether you're in either of the two classifications. So let me explain the classifications. Class 2, which is what we've been very successful, we're getting 90% plus of the people that we deal with through Class 2, which is the least expensive option, which is paying back every year, buying back for £165 a year. So that's where the £3,000 for the 18 years comes from. But if you fail to convince the people in UK revenue that you are entitled to Class 2, they will assess you at Class 3, which for the same period of time is closer to £15,000 to buy back those years than 3. Now, there are a plethora of reasons as to why they would disallow you.
So I suppose having somebody help you navigate it sounds helpful because even though the process is relatively straightforward, it sounds like there are various conditions that need to be considered along the way.
Yes, and simply put, if somebody's the key elements are you have to leave the UK pretty much immediately after you finish your employment.
Okay.
And from 2006 until now, some or all of those years, you've had to been what they call insurably employed overseas. In the Irish terms, that would be paying PRSI. In various other jurisdictions, it's really when you're employed and paying tax and insurance in that country.
And this is a very important point. You've alluded to it. It's actually done in isolation to considering whether or not you are entitled to a pension in that foreign jurisdiction. So taking your example or any example for somebody who has worked in the UK previously, you can get a full Irish state pension and a full UK state pension. And it sounds like they're not impacted by each other. That's very possible for the people that you have helped.
Yeah, I can't speak to the various jurisdictions around the world because I don't know the rules in relation to all the pension arrangements. But I know we started our business with other Irish people. And it took me a long time to get the Department of Social Protection in Ireland to give me something in writing to confirm that buying your UK state pension years, that it wouldn't impact your contributory PRSI social insurance pension in Ireland, even though it's for the same years. So the first question my wife asked me, she said, look, you can't pay $3,000 to the UK government if all you're doing is substituting those years for the years you're going to get in Ireland, and you end up with no net benefit. But it's treated as an additional voluntary contribution.
So it's impossible to get both. If you meet the conditions, you can voluntarily pay into the UK system. And did the Department of Social Protection, were they happy that it didn't impact the entitlement year? I mean, in theory, if you've put into both systems and you're not having a means tested pension, you'd imagine they're in isolation.
They are in isolation.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
There are means by which you can combine the two, but I don't get into that. It's in some respects,
Yeah.
it might, with the benefit that you can get on the UK side, it's probably in some respects better to keep it separate.
I would agree. So I suppose on that point, we often have questions from clients there, and where you have a partial PRSI record in Ireland. So in other words, you don't have full entitlement, and you may also have a partial one in the UK, maybe where somebody doesn't have the means to voluntarily contribute. The protocol that was signed into force when Brexit happened essentially means that there is an aggregation of contributions, so that normally if you wouldn't make it past the post in Ireland because you don't, for example, have 520 contributions, for example, they will look at the number you've got in the UK and pay you a partial Irish pension and a partial UK one. That's a slightly different scenario, and that can happen globally, I suppose. Well, with Ireland and other international countries such as the US, we do have reciprocal agreements. But you hit on a very valid point, and one thing that I think is also interesting, and I don't know if this comes up often, I suppose particularly because of Martha's line of work previously, it'll be something that you're very aware of, is, the value of having an annuity, essentially a PRSI or a UK state contribution or state pension, is like an annuity. It's X amount of money that you have for life. And they are, as I understand it, quite expensive in the market currently to buy on the open market. The value in actually being able to purchase this, it's quite good value for money, is basically what I'm trying to say. Is that something that your clients tend to kind of understand or see?
Yes, it is, and where sometimes I have a difficulty in terms of if somebody gets the Class 2 designation, they're very quick, and rightly so, to pay the £3,000 and buy that back, because what you're buying is 18 years, which effectively is 18 years of a pension. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm pretty close. Even if you had 3 plus 18 is 21, that'll get you about current value about £7,500 to £8,000 a year. So effectively, it's a 6-month payback, not accounting for any tax. Now, where I have an issue sometimes is for people who, for whatever reason, they are denied Class 2 and they are faced with Class 3. It seems awfully expensive when compared to Class 2, but it's still probably some of the best value you can get to buy an annuity. But it's very difficult for them to see that when they're coming away from, instead of paying £165 a year to buy a year back, they're paying £825.
Yeah.
But it's probably about a 2.5-year payback.
But equally, I think if they also walked into, their local financial planner and tried to buy an annuity of that value, they would get a very big shock as to what it would actually cost them, even if they were doing it via a pension.
But I can understand how people who think they might be entitled to Class 2, if in roughly the 8 to 10% of people that I deal with who don't get Class 2, they say, oh my God, it's very expensive. But it's not. And it takes me a while to actually get them to understand that it's still a remarkable investment.
What does working with your team look like? Talk us through, because there's going to be a cohort of people here who may have questions, but there also will be people listening thinking, this is interesting. I have family members, for example, who I think need your services. What does it look like working with you?
Effectively, just in terms of the processes, it's pretty much all done online. Happily, we set up a system at the outset that gets us into a situation where we're not dealing with amounts of paper that we would otherwise deal with. So pretty much everything we do is operated on our platform. We ask people to submit the information into our platform, and that allows us to pre-populate all the forms that are required.
Mm-hmm.
It allows me to interrogate every case, or Martha, and to then check what I know to be the critical aspects, and any difficulties that might be in the application to check to see if they've been filled out correctly, or if we can adjust something to make it more palatable for the HMRC. And then everything is done pretty much by DocuSign, requiring e-signatures. Then I require, again, online, some appendices from everybody to get their work record from 2006 or whenever they left the UK to date. Sometimes I'll ask them if they can get it in the Irish context, a PRSI year by year statement, which is easy to get online, to go with that as a convincer, effectively, for the international caseworkers. Our objective all the time is to make it easy for the international caseworkers in Newcastle upon Tyne to tick the box and say class 2.
Yes. Yeah.
We know how to optimize the applications for people. That's the key to it.
Yeah. Experience counts for a lot with these things, doesn't it? When you've seen things come across your desk. Do people go to the website if they want to initiate an application?
Yes, it's all done through the website. And the website is the fee. Our fee is €550, which includes VAT, and that's unashamedly taken at the outset. And that allows us to just go ahead and process everything in a very fast manner. Stephanie, one of the things that, particularly in Ireland, has changed in the past 3 months. There was a few radio programs that scared the life out of everybody in Ireland about this thing coming to a shuddering halt. This entire opportunity finishes on the 5th of April, 2025. But some broadcasters have looked at this and they said, well, HMRC are taking about 8 to 10 months to come back to people, which is true. And there's 7 months left, so we're almost too late. And that's leading people at the present moment in time to throw their hands up and say, look, I'm not going to bother with this because I'm too late. That is not true.
Okay, there's still time.
The applications are open until the 5th, but it's going to concertina together, because as you get close to the deadline, they'll accept the applications, and when they get to assess them, they'll give 8 weeks from the date of the statement to make the payment.
Okay.
So it's still open, even though it is closing quite soon, but the deadline is the deadline for applications.
Okay. So therefore, if you're listening to this in advance of April 2025, you still have time to act, and you should do so, because it does sound like once the window closes, it is shutting. I know there has been extensions, but it doesn't appear like there's going to be any further. And this is obviously at quite a large cost to the exchequer in the UK, so it's not going to be.
I've been asked to estimate that.
It would be nice to estimate what it costs. But I also think, we're all living longer. We are in a cost of living crisis. Really, this does require the ability to have some cash immediately, which not everybody has, but if they do, it is definitely worth considering doing this, because it is to some extent, it's an opportunity that's not going to be around forever, and it's definitely worth considering. Mel, thank you so much for stepping us through. I feel like we could probably spend a lot longer talking about this issue generally, but I think even what you've explained has been massively helpful and should really incentivize people to visit the website ukstatepensionabroad.com, where they can initiate an application and I assume can converse with your team directly if they have questions about the process from there on in.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Well, one thing I'd just like to say, Steph, just that although applications are open until the 5th of April, technically, because the fact that everything is going to concertina together at the very end, we will probably close applications sometime in early November. Because we're a 2-person team, if we have hundreds of applications going in and coming out and have a sensitive timeline on them with an 8-week to make a payment, we need to make sure we manage that process correctly for people at the very end.
Okay.
And it's going to get very tight. And what we do actually is, and you asked about the process, is when people get their statement, you have to be very careful in dealing with HMRC. As you know, they have about 45 million taxpayers, and if you're paying them the money, it has to be done in a certain way, and there are very, very strict parameters about that, and also very strict protocols about looking for assurance from them by way of receipts, specifics, to make sure that your account has been updated. And it just means that we're probably going to have to shut up shop for new applications in about 8 weeks' time.
Okay.
Because otherwise, it just won't work for us at the end. It'll be too many people together at the same time.
Well, it's been able to, if you've made a commitment and charge people a fee, you're basically saying we want to be able to honour our existing clients and the.
Yes.
Okay, that's really interesting. Well, we'll prioritise release of this podcast so that our listeners have as much time as possible. But look, thank you so much for coming on. I know you're not currently in Ireland at the moment, and it was a stretch to kind of find a time that worked to record this, but it's been absolutely fantastic to talk to you more about it and to learn a bit more. So thank you for joining us. And anybody who wants to go to the website ukstatepensionabroad.com will find more information in the show notes. Thanks for joining us, Mel.
Thanks very much, Steph. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Tax Bytes for Expats. Please do leave a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcast. And as always, remember to take professional tax advice specific to your personal circumstances before acting or refraining from action in connection with the matters dealt with in this series. The material in this podcast is intended to give general guidance only.